Welcome, everyone. I want to introduce myself. My name is Kim Tant, and I work in Marco's marketing and sales operations. So thank you again for coming to have a discussion around the strategic benefits of managed IT and security partnerships. So just wanted to say this is going to be interactive today. So if you have any questions, please drop those into the chat. We will have a Q&A session at the end, and so we hope to get to many of those as we can. We will also have some polls today. So if you're able, and we'd love for you to engage with us and actually answer those questions. And then we do get asked this a lot, but the session is going to be recorded. We will share this out in a follow-up email with any resources that are mentioned. So if you want to review this or share it out with other colleagues, you can definitely do that as well. So to kick us off, I'd like to introduce Jonathan Worry. He's Marco's VP of Managed Services. And Jonathan, I'll let you take it away.
Kim, hi, everybody. We know you get invited to probably dozens of webinars per week, so we appreciate you spending some time with us. We will do our best to give you some meaningful content. We've got some subject matter experts with a lot of industry experience ready to share with you, and looking forward to some good content. And hopefully you'll ask some questions, and that'll guide some of the conversation too, because we do get bored listening to ourselves talk. So please send us some questions. I've been at the organization for 28 years, and I've served in a variety of capacities, including Chief Operating Officer, and now help run this business unit. And this is our outsourced IT services. And under the umbrella for that is, what we're going to talk about today, managed services, which is a broad category. It's fractional or consulting services. It is cloud voice, and then it's the guidance around all the licensing that you need to really run your horizontal IT practice. And we often work with your ERP or your line of business applications to help support those, even though you've got relationships with those folks too in your respective industries. So and here's how managed services has changed in my time at Marco. When I started in the mid-90s, we were helping clients install their own networks. Might have been their first one, or they were putting their accounting package in, or they were moving off of a mainframe system. And a lot of customers would buy block time because they wanted our technicians' help to, when stuff broke, we would come in and fix it. It was reactive. Any expense was typically unbudgeted, and yet it was annoying, and it took them down. And what happened in our industry is it moved into this more, once high-speed internet became available, and remote monitoring and management, or RMM tools, became available, we could actually do a lot of work remotely. And so small and medium businesses go, hey, I might have IT workers on staff, but I still need some supplementary help. Or I don't have any IT and I need that IT support. So what happened about 20 years ago, we got our first managed IT client when one of our good customers lost their IT team. And so that was our first one. And then over time, it evolved where more and more customers wanted to go to a proactive, fixed expense type of model for IT. And so we're going to talk to you a little bit about that today. Then really in line with that, everybody had antivirus. Everybody had to put a firewall in because you needed protection from the outside. And so cybersecurity really was how do we padlock our doors really well? And as we all know now, and if you're in your respective industries, you've got compliance needs. You might have regulators or auditors that want to see not only your protection plan, but your response plan. So we're helping clients with their cybersecurity, deployment of it, but we also have the compliance and the proactivity over in our consulting services, or you can think of that as fractional services. A lot of firms might do fractional HR, fractional CFO. This would be fractional CISO, so security officer assistance. We've got that expertise on hand, or even just general virtual CIO. And it would think of that of like helping you plan your technology initiatives, budget for them. And so we provide those services to our clients as well. So this is the evolution of managed services as we've seen it at Marco and out in our client base across the 15 states that we serve. And our team is going to get into more of the details of it. All right. Thanks, Kim.
And so let's go ahead and introduce our speakers. Shelley, I'll start with you. Can you give us an introduction?
Yeah, good morning or afternoon. As Kim said, depending on where you're watching from. My name is Shelley Caldwell. I'm an 18-year employee, so I've been around for a while. My home is in Rochester, Minnesota, and I am a subject matter expert around just listening to key leaders inside of business, figuring out how to right-size security and right-size their service support. So thanks for the invite to join today. I'll hand it over to Adam.
Yeah, hello, Adam Ramberg. Been in the industry for 20 plus years, 15 of those with Marco myself. My title is Director of Consulting Services, and so I'm really focused today on improving our managed services product offering, as well as bringing to market some of those ancillary managed products that Jonathan mentioned earlier. In my capacities, I have overseen the services division of our Amplify IT, or our managed services practice, and so I know the operational ins and outs of how it works, so happy to be here today.
Good morning, Riley Knudsen. Been with Marco for just about 7 years, probably served in about every capacity within our managed services segment in that time. So everything from living the client journey, walking that hand in hand as a technical account manager, so hoping kind of guide budgetary conversations, align those solutions, some pre-sales consulting work, so actually scoping out the projects, getting into the nitty-gritty, and kind of leverage those experiences to make sure that we're shaping solutions that drive the outcomes and challenges that we're trying to solve for our customers. I'll kick things off here with the agenda too. A successful webinar today. It really looks like trying to get rid of some of the ambiguity around what this mythical thing managed IT services truly is. You ask 10 people, you're probably going to get 10 different answers. Why you should consider outsourcing or augmenting your IT staff or a portion of that. Identifying the strategies for choosing the right managed service provider at the end of the day. Super tactical and strategic decision. The benefits of partnering with a managed service provider. And then finish it off with some case studies specifically of how we've helped some organizations.
Perfect. Well, I mentioned that we are going to ask you to engage with us. So we have a poll. What is your organization's current approach to IT management? So I have launched the poll. Would love you to answer. So is it fully in-house, partially outsourced, fully outsourced, or are you considering outsourcing? So you should see a timer going off right now. You have about 30 seconds left. If you choose your answer, hit submit, and then we will display the results for everyone to see. So it does look like we have some participation, so thank you for that if you are. It does look like right now fully outsourced is leading the charge on the answer that I see. But looks like more people are engaging as well, which is helpful. All right, you got about 10 more seconds, and then we'll share those results. And thank you again for those engaging. All right. So let's share those attendees. We'll share those results with you. Here we go. Let's apply those. So it does look like we have 2 fully in-house. We have some partially outsourced and fully outsourced. We're tied, both of those. So Shelley, SNC, as Riley mentioned, when you start doing research around managed IT services, there are a lot of options to sort through, right? Some companies, it means, yep, I'm just going to offer you an end user help desk only. Other times, cybersecurity comes into the conversation. Other times, it means a more comprehensive program that has a lot of the things that you see on this slide: cybersecurity, help desk, and network monitoring. So, Shelley, can you answer, what is managed IT?
There are so many definitions to what managed IT services are. As Riley joked when you kicked off our agenda, is, you know, if we pull the 5 of us, we would get different answers, but at Marco, it means it's a service that we provide and we measure. Now, the service can also include tools. But before we dig into what our services are, I want to maybe back up a little bit and talk about why it is really important, because these are big business decisions when you're talking about managed IT services and the partnerships that you're picking. So managed services providers, many businesses are managed services providers, but how they're built is really important to consider. So there's some managed services providers that are really industry specific, like they only provide type of expertise to either manufacturing or maybe legal or healthcare. Okay, so there's those types of services. There's also managed services providers around, say, applications such as Epicor or Infor or other certain tools. So just really be aware that people use that phrase, managed IT, in different contexts. So when you're starting to identify, hey, who's the right type of partner, spend some time learning a little bit more about what each organization can provide you in the services and support. I think a different thing I want to call out too, and it speaks to the slides that we're seeing, is there's different types of service models. So what some organizations are is break fix. So hey, something happens and now the organization is responding to it. Okay, in our mind here at Markel, that's not so much a managed services partner, although at times you need that part too. So if something needs to be changed in your environment, if something's not working quite right, it would either be included under your contract or it would be something that would be part of an acquisition or planning. So I think also the piece that we want to call out is each managed services business builds their software and support based on users or devices or co-managed. So there's so many different types of managed services providers out there. We want to be sure to bring that to you. The piece that I haven't really touched on a whole lot is the cybersecurity. So risk management and identifying, hey, what things do we need to have in our system to keep us protected is really important. I use a phrase that a lot of key leaders in businesses connect to is security is a business challenge, not only IT challenge. So when you're starting to pick a partner and understanding how they will provide the right cybersecurity tools, the right help desk support, and networking management, and then also, I'd maybe add another word to that, Kim, relationship management, meaning if things aren't going well, how do we respond to any sort of answers or put together a solid plan for strategy?
Great. Well, Shelley, you did a great job on defining managed IT and things to definitely think about when you're starting to consider this. But some companies, as Jonathan mentioned, have been doing this for 15 years, 20 years, even 20 years plus, right? So Riley, when you're starting to look at this and you're starting to compare the different offerings available, like how should an organization think about this when they're looking for a mature managed IT service provider?
Yeah, it's asking a lot of really great questions, getting to the core of what those solutions and what that provider really comes to the table with. It's probably never been more important to really make sure that you're walking hand in hand with somebody who's got a mature offering with all the risk that's out there today and all the exposure that comes with that. You often hear us say that between managed service providers, it's generally like comparing apples to oranges. So from that standpoint, it's really getting into the weeds, taking a consultative approach to really understand what's a part of each offering and what they offer. So, generally speaking, what is good or what does best look like can be a little bit individualized to each organization, but it's encompassing, a strong security program, probably in alignment with some sort of central framework, whether that's NIST, whether that's CIS safeguards, et cetera. Having end user support that provides a predictable number that they can call and get support any time of the day. It's the back end management of their network and server management, and then the consulting services that come as a part of that as well. So it's the actual road mapping, budgetary alignment, and if appropriate, VCIO or VCSO services.
Great. Thank you, Riley. Appreciate that. So my takeaway is make sure you're comparing side by side, right? Because you mentioned apples and oranges, so you need to make sure you're literally looking at things side by side. So Adam, a common question that we get that comes up around managed IT when we're talking to people is, around what does implementation look like? Sometimes I say onboarding is like a dirty word, but really it's the implementation. How does this work? How are you going to partner and start working together? So what should we be considering and thinking about around implementation?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to clarify what it means by implementing managed IT. In effect, we could be replacing one entire IT department, all the people, the processes, and the technology with a different one provided by Marco or another managed services provider. And so this is and typically we're attempting to do that within 30 to 60 days. So this is a major change and it's a major project. And so understanding really the different transition type that we're going to be accommodating is probably the most important thing. Similar to what you asked in the first poll, Kim, we need to understand whether the customer is fully insourced, maybe they have a hybrid insourced outsourced relationship, or if they're already fully outsourced with another MSP. We've had some customers tell us that their existing IT is ready and willing to move services to Marco. Perfect, that's a good transition. And we've had other scenarios where we've been told, like, help us prepare for a hostile takeover. Like, we're coming in day one, we're locking down access, we're resetting administrative credentials immediately. But as Marco, we see it all, and so we do need to be prepared for what type of transition it's going to be. We run everything through a project plan, a project management department, and so that's a key aspect of this is we do have to have everything planned and ran by our project management team. We'll establish a point of contact that we're going to interface with and communicate with. We are setting go live dates. So I said 30 to 60 days. There's a couple of key dates within that time period that are most important. One of them being when Marco provides our protection tools and the company or the other incumbent protection tools have to leave, there can't be any gap in time there protecting your organization. And so we really have to plan for the transition of those protection tools in and out. And then the other go live date is, when does Marco have enough information and remote management and capability to help your end users? And so what day can your end users call Marco for support or go into our portal and submit a support ticket? Those are a couple of key dates. All the while, we're going to be doing a lot of discovery for us to be able to protect and manage all the assets in your environment. We have to know what's on your network and we have to know what's going on. And so we'll do electronic auditing and discovering, as well as a lot of interviewing key people to figure out like what's your processes, what's your documentation, documentation collection, training your key point of contact so that they know how to interface with Marco moving forward, and we train the key point of contact so that they can train their end users on how to navigate Marco, submit tickets as well. All the while, effective change management, which includes communication or over communication. We say if you think you're communicating too much, it's probably the right amount. And so just strong communication through the whole process as well.
That's great. That's some good points and good things to think about, Adam. Thanks for walking through that. So Shelley, you have a lot of calls with clients that are really looking to maybe switch from one MSP to another one, or actually considering it altogether. Can you talk me through some of the current challenges in IT management that prompt people looking for this service or starting to have conversations?
You got it, Kim. So the first bullet point there, it talks about threats. So this is such a change. And I've been in this industry for 18 years. When we first started, it wasn't as loud as what it is right now. So our job is to come alongside your organization and just learn about the risk or the concerns that you have. If you've had a security incident or a security event, like how is it handled? Our job is to help you there. So consider that, just because even on this call, there's a lot of experts around, hey, this is some good processes and strategies to consider. There's best practices and frameworks we would talk to you about. The additional bullet point there is always changes in technology. So it's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Innovation and finding out about new technology that's going to create revenue streams within your business is exciting also. So how do we help? It's a good way for us to understand, okay, key objectives in your organization. What are you looking to accomplish, and why would outsourcing help you get there? And whether it be, hey, I have an IT resource in-house, they're a great team member. It's just, technology sprawl has happened because so much technology has been added to the organization. So we can help to put together a plan there. So definitely a reason to consider outsourcing or augmenting IT staff. Shortages or turnover of employees. Boy, this has changed quite a bit since our even time during COVID. We saw a lot of change in exceptional IT people inside of businesses. And what happens to that knowledge when those employees turn over? So, you know, it does say on their shortage, it's true. You know, there's definitely security expertise that's needed inside of businesses, and certainly a way that you can tap into a managed services provider like Marco to be able to access that type of expertise. Legacy systems is something that is also a reason why people consider. So let's just use an example of, hey, we have operating systems inside of our business, but we don't necessarily know the right strategy in order to upgrade. A managed services partner can help you with that process. And then work is an action, not a location. And our employees will be successful as long as they have internet and they have good tools on their laptop, if that's a culture that you have inside your organization. You know, we can, picking a managed services partner would help you with that strategy, make sure it's built right. Onboarding and offboarding employees. This has also changed, meaning the way that we're accessing information, whether it be on a mobile device or whether it be on a laptop, is a great way that businesses have been able to access their business applications that help run the organization. And then understanding what your expenses are for if you have internal resources, and if you're considering a managed services partner, understanding the cost containment or understanding, hey, this is what the different options would look like is a reason to consider outsourcing.
Great. So Shelly, I'm going to joke with you. There were so many challenges. We originally had like all of them in one slide, but then it got to a font of like 10. So then we basically had to break it into 2 because there is a lot of challenges in the marketplace. So can you walk us through some more of these that, as I say, the other bucket was really about just onboarding, you know, workforces, and then walk me through this. This is definitely leaning more towards the side of that data management compliance.
Sure. So another reason to consider. So anyone here of artificial intelligence, automated workflows, trying to figure out how to implement this stuff, and oh, by the way, is our network ready for it? So that is a real reason to consider, you know, selecting the right partner. The other piece is it's great to have all these excellent tools that are helping with identify, hey, there's an optimization or efficiency inside of your business. But what about compliance and the different regulations that your organization has to respond to when there's a request or prepare for? So we have teams of experts and other managed service, you know, as a managed services partner, we can help with consulting and advisement, whether it be, you know, HIPAA, whether it be FTC, GLBA, you know, there's lots of acronyms. Whatever the control that you have or documentation or policy, we can assist you with. So I often get asked, you know, how do we figure out, we have to make sure that our network is up and functioning all the time. Like, how do we figure that part out? If there's a security event, what's the plan? So picking a partner can help you identify what your business impact would be if there is some sort of security event. It's hard to do that with internal resources. You have to tap on experienced people in order to put that plan together. So those I would say would be a highlight. With the last one is business outcomes. So our team here at Marco, managed services providers, should be listening to what kind of outcomes you're looking to accomplish. Because lining up your technology, the tools, and identifying your costs in order to get there is a really important discussion. So that's why you should consider outsourcing and partnering with a managed service partner.
Perfect. So Shelly, before we move on to the next slide, SNC, I wanted to, Jonathan, we actually had a really good question that I sort of wanted to broach to you. So someone mentioned, we obviously talked about the challenge of IT shortages, but what strategies does Marco use to ensure that we have enough staff and resources to support clients in a way that the client doesn't have a lapse in coverage as well? And I thought this was a really good point. So I felt like you would be a good one to answer it.
Okay. Hope I answered correctly. I think one of the things we focus heavily on is becoming a good place to work for tech professionals, because a lot of people that go into it, whether it be through a degree or the School of Hard Knocks, they like working, they like solving technical problems, for other people. They just like doing that. If you go to work internal IS, you are limited in whatever that company's IT strategy is. I think that's part of the reason you see turnover in that, to go, hey, we haven't changed anything. I like new challenges. I like new problems, but it's a static environment. Well, yeah, and the business is going, I like it when it's static because that's controlled and I don't want to spend a lot of resources on it. So we're this place where if you want to, you can start on our help desk, get on a certification path, maybe move into field service or go into an expertise area around all the way up to a high degree network engineer. And then you get to work with other smart, dedicated people in that environment, learning from them. So I think, and that's why, hey, I'm going to be an internal IS person or I'm going to be external. A lot of the people that start external stay in that capacity because they just like solving tech problems and they like working on new things and new challenges. So we try to create that environment, and then basically that subscriber network of good technical staff is what folks subscribe to when they do an outsource. So I think that's probably the differentiator for us. So yeah, that's how I'd answer that.
Good. I thought it was really well. And I do think Shelly and I were talking about this too, Jonathan. It's nice to have like a growth path if you want to do that. And a lot of times, sometimes that's not available, if you're just, one or two people. And as I say, there is a growth path at Marco that is available, I think is another point too. So as you mentioned, great.
Yet the way we structure our service pods, those teams really do like working together. And so they don't have to they can keep growing their skills and careers by remaining in a role too. So I think, and they like working with each other, solving customer problems.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, great. Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate that. So as I was saying, that nicely leads into our next talking point, which is really around the benefits of partnering with an MSP. So as I say, Riley, when we talk about, how to handle some of these challenges that Shelly talked about, there definitely is, there is benefits, right? So there has to be a reason why you're moving. So can you walk us through some of those that we hear? So what are some key benefits?
Yeah, a lot of the reasons that you'd consider it directly align with those benefits, right? So in terms of the first being cost management, that's probably the reason that any organization starts going down the path of, hey, should I outsource this service or bring it in-house? From a cost standpoint, is it going to make sense? If we do our jobs right, from a managed service partnership perspective, we're going to provide an organization with access to expertise. Within the Marco sphere, we got 650 engineers across just about every vertical of technology, allowing your resources to focus on core aspects of the business. So whether that's line of business applications that actually drive revenue at the end of the day, and then ultimately to economies of scale, with our partnerships and our size, providing you tools, partnerships that provide you with some kickback on some of the dollars and project work as well. So cost is certainly one aspect of it, providing some scalable and flexible solutions as an organization grows. If you're on an acquisition rampage, being able to have a team that's devoted to you as a part of that partnership who can help spin up those locations, get them integrated, not have to scramble to find those staff members yourself and have that downtime as well. And then ultimately security, right? More so than anything. One individual can't be the expert on everything. And somebody could probably have a full-time job just trying to understand the adoption of even a company like Microsoft, right? And some of those services. So providing you with some mitigation of risk that comes with security and a limited budget and staff internally. And then also providing 24/7 monitoring and alerting and support as well. So that way you don't have your small team internally picking up the phone at 2 a.m. Hopefully can augment and push some of that off to a big technical depth within a partnership. Compliance and risk management, that's going to only continue to be more and more a focus and importance. Having a trusted partner that can help and on the daily basis is working with other organizations with similar challenges and driving those outcomes at the end of the day that we're looking for. And then ultimately, above anything, improving service levels for your organization. So having predictable targets around support so that we can make sure that your staff has a good experience at the end of the day around technology.
Right. And Adam, I'm going to throw another great question comes in that sort of fits into this improved service levels and are just around being able to help client. So help desk support, you mentioned that was one of the things that Marco can obviously help with. Is there one that is assigned specifically for the organization, or how does that work when we're talking about service levels?
Sure, yeah, and you heard Riley mention 650 employees across all different skills and technologies, and you heard Jonathan mention service pods. The answer to this really is in the service pods, and so we do have specific service pods between 8 to 15 technicians of different skills and abilities with a service delivery manager or supervisor leading each of those pods. They do get mapped to customers, and so we do a super effective job of documenting processes and following processes. So any 650 technician could find the right process and do the task for your organization, but there are the benefits of having 10 to 15 people with institutional knowledge on how your organization works, and so having that mapping of a service pod to certain organizations really does help us with the best of both worlds here.
Great. Those have been some really good questions. And that leads us to a poll. So Shelley, if you'll flip that over, and I'll just go ahead and open that poll. So as I say, for our attendees, what is your biggest challenge that you're facing? And obviously we say the top challenge, and we probably could have done multiple check boxes on these, right? Because it might be more than one, but really we're asking, what is your biggest challenge with IT management? Is it cybersecurity concerns? Is it keeping up with technology changes, as Shelley mentioned? Cost management, like Riley just talked about, some lack of in-house expertise, maybe with solutions or technology, even that could be cybersecurity, and then, or is it scalability issues? So the poll is open. We have about 20 seconds, and we do have some answers in. So we're actually getting cybersecurity concerns and some lack of in-house expertise. Oh, cybersecurity is jumping ahead, guys. We thought that might be the right one. You do have 5 seconds left. Put you on a little of a time clock. All right, we'll go ahead and close that poll, and so we'll share that with everybody. So it does look like the team thought it would be cybersecurity concerns was number one, and then cost management was next, lack of in-house expertise, and scalability issues. So thank you again, everyone, for participating in the poll. So we've talked about what is managed IT. We've talked about some challenges. We've talked about implementation, some benefits. But all right, we're now to the part of we have to choose the right one. That's a big decision. So when we select that, that's critical to a business success, right? We know that that's a really big decision. So Adam, we divide this into red flags and green flags. I thought that'd be a good way to take a look at this. Can you talk us through the red flags? And when we're looking, what should we avoid and not? We don't want this.
Yeah, so as your organization is evaluating different managed services providers, if any of these pop up, they are the red flag. So no assessment before the final pricing or proposal, meaning if the managed service provider is not asking all sorts of questions, both strategic about how your organization uses IT, or as well as tactical, like what's in your network, either through a deep questionnaire or a formal assessment. Look for that. If they're coming in and providing a pricing and proposal without asking questions, that's a huge red flag. Second one would be a lack of transparency or detail in the agreement terms. So prior to signing anything, review the provider's product and service agreement as well as their service catalog. If the combination of those two documents don't tell you everything that service is going to provide, the time to ask the clarifying questions is at that point. But a well-run MSP should have a service catalog and agreement that really calls out what the service entitlements are. The third one is if that MSP struggles to get back to you on a vendor due diligence package or questionnaire, that would be a red flag. Most MSPs, at least every mature MSP today, they're super accustomed to responding to these standard due diligence question packets, and you should be doing that as an organization as well, especially when you're bringing a strategic partner in, such as managed IT services. More and more managed service providers they actually do have SOC 2 Type 2 type reports, which are third-party audited reports of how their security controls lay out, and Marco has that. And I would say ask the service provider to give you a copy of their SOC 2 Type 2 report. If they outsource or offshore critical services that are part of their service delivery model, and what I really mean by this is it's not uncommon for MSPs to outsource or offshore some back-end development or NOC type services. But the most critical ones are when your end users are calling for support during the day, after hours, weekends, ask, who are my employees going to be speaking to? Is it, you know, a W-2 employee from your organization, or is it going to be an outsourced or offshored arrangement? Because those interactions do matter. And then the last one I have here is, you know, if anybody through the process minimizes the impact of this decision to outsource your IT, i.e. like, hey, this is going to be easy, don't worry about it, your end users are going to love it, like those are all red flags, because as I mentioned earlier, it's a big process. You're swapping an entire IT department or a portion of an IT department. There's a lot of things that change and move through the process. That's not to say it won't be better at the end of the day, but you know, typically there's a good 6-month ramp for everybody to learn each other, both businesses to understand the do's and don'ts of the process, and then it's a continual, you know, continual improvement partnership from there on out for many, many years. So,
Adam, there is no easy button for managed IT, like the Staples commercials?
unfortunately, there's no easy button for managed IT. No.
No. Well, great. Well, thanks. As I say, thanks for walking through the red flags. So, Shelley, can you talk us through some green flags that you might be looking for when you're searching for a provider?
Yeah, happy to. So it is important to know the type of expertise that your organization that you're partnering with has. And specifically, let's use an example. So Adam just got done sharing, like, hey, this process, it takes time, communication, details. So having a solid project management team and knowing the depth of project expertise is important. Ask that question. And that should be part of the process. Experience and expertise specifically as it relates to the designing parts of your business too. So say you have a IT project or you're rolling out a new application and you need some help making sure that it's architected correctly. There is different expertise that's available inside of businesses. Ask about that. If they, the people that you're working with provide that in advance, or if there's certain business critical systems that you need a type of expertise, ask for it. It's okay to do that. But choosing the right partner would bring that to the forefront as part of your discussion. The comprehensive solutions or the range of services and almost like creativity to your unique or individual business is also a green flag. So sometimes your business is going through a transition and you're trying to figure out, like, hey, what does a, you know, almost a tiered model look like too? Like, can we grow with your partner? So range of services, to be able to be flexible, is a key green flag to listen and watch for. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but security, oh man, this word, you know, actually unpacking what the definition of security is, it means so much to so many different businesses, but making sure that if you have a regulation or, you know, some sort of process that you need to put in place for controls and responding to requests, make sure there's a documented process for that and ask for it. You know, what is the engagement and advisement that you get as part of your partnership? Now, we just got done talking about policies. So policies and forms for good risk management practices, but documentation about, hey, if we partner with Marco or if we partner, what would that look like? Meaning, what is the documented process for our technicians that would be that 9 to, you know, call it, or 7 to 15 different people that are dedicated to our service team. So making sure that there's good best practices documented is important. Reputation and references, another key component is making sure that if there is a relationship that you're looking to begin, like they are upfront with references, or maybe even a customer that we went through a hard time and we worked on it together. And being transparent throughout the process is something that's been a very good thing to add to that list. Technology and tools. If we don't understand, or if your partner doesn't understand the technology platforms that you have invested with, along with the security tool or types of tools your business is running, it's important for us to do that. So be sure that that's part of the process. They have a thorough evaluation of those tools. And then finally, I think the thing I want to touch on is the continuation of innovation. We talked about that a bit. Bringing thought leadership to our relationship meetings, or bringing ideas about new technology that's being deployed, whether it's a new mobile device, maybe it's a new way to manage onboarding new users, but bringing ideas to the table about, hey, have you considered this type of technology versus the one that you're doing right now? For just a few green flags. And I think a thing that I do want to call out is, Kim, I've seen an excellent sales resource that outlines the green flags and red flags. So as a call to action, if any of you are looking for these types of red or green flags that walk you through that process, we'd be happy to share that with you too.
That's great. So Shelley, your last point that you talked about is really that continued innovation and new offerings. And sometimes when we talk to clients, we realize that they're working with multiple vendors to manage in terms of their organization's technology, right? So they have to go to 3 to 4 people, one for voice, one for print, one for this, and that's a lot to manage. So Adam, is there a benefit to partnering with a company that understands all facets of the technology? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. What we have at Marco, you know, it's really everything. You know, your IT department manages the network, and over time, over the past 30 years, everything is joining the network, right? Everything has a network card, and everything's connected to the network. And so, management of things that sometimes typically used to fall outside of the IT department business unit are now at least being managed by the business unit, or partially managed by the business unit. And so if the organization you're not partnering with, if they don't know how to interface well with those other vendors or vendor support companies, you're not going to have a great experience. And the better model would be sometimes consolidation of vendors, or a vendor that can actually handle things more than just your IT, right? And so at Marco, we provide a lot of above and beyond managed services, or point-in-time value services as well, that really augment our managed IT services. And so on the list here, you're going to see assessments. Like we said, a lot of times those assessments will come before the managed services agreement, but oftentimes during the managed IT agreement as well. If you want to do an assessment on a new technology, or an AI assessment, or a co-pilot assessment, all of our managed services companies, they still continue to have annual budgets where they have to have projects to replace hardware and refreshes. And so to have a strong IT project team with a project management group to run projects is key, something that Marco has. Cloud services, specifically Microsoft 365 and Azure cloud services, are a big focus. As Jonathan mentioned, things were on-prem, then off-prem, you know, it kind of fluctuates back and forth, and we're definitely seeing more and more of the infrastructure going to the cloud, and to a cloud, public cloud infrastructure like Azure. Having that fourth box, being more proactive around compliance and planning in the case of an incident, you know, that's where our fractional CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, or CIO, Chief Information Officer, consulting services can come in. We do things like cloud voice and Teams calling, traditional phone systems, AI and business process automation. So we do like document management or enterprise content management that falls into that category. Conference rooms, AV equipment, full boardroom setups, we have a division for that. Physical security like door locks, surveillance systems, and then what we were foundationally built on from back in 1973, which is copiers and printers. So we've been doing that since inception of Marco as well. So we have the breadth of other services that you can add to your managed services as well.
Thanks for sharing that, Adam. And so, Riley, you talked, as part of your role, you get to talk to a lot of people, right? Really during that discovery process and then really with them thinking on it. And so I thought you would be a great person to actually talk us through. We have two case studies of like some real scenarios of how we helped people. So walk us through those just so people can see how we helped.
Yeah. This first one here in particular was an automotive group that was struggling with continuity challenges and then also linking back to our poll cybersecurity concerns where they have been managing IT for decades. I don't know if I've exactly kept up with the times to the best of my ability as I've kind of gotten near the end of my career. And so it'd be really great to partner with a company like Marco to really make sure that as I leave and go out to my next journey here, I'm leaving the organization in a good place. And then from there, also feel confident in the service provider that's going to ultimately deliver service after. So in this one in particular, the FTC safeguards ruling came down here over the last couple of years, really transformed some of the industries in terms of, from a policy standpoint, what they need to have in place, a cybersecurity tool standpoint, and ultimately the teams that are supporting those. So you'll hear it probably in both of these case studies. Really, these engagements are really effective on the front end when we start with an assessment. So in this particular case, running through a technology and security assessment to really perform a gap analysis on what documentation do you have, the tools and processes, and then from there, working together to really build out an integration plan and roadmap. So ultimately leaving us there, we were able to onboard the organization to manage services within about 30 days. Leave a little bit of time there too to have some continuity planning where old IT managers stuck on, was able to help us kind of learn their systems a little bit too, and really led to a great outcome.
Right. Then what about this next one? So the next case study we have is definitely around more of security concerns. So listen on this one.
These are the calls that I don't necessarily love joining. Ultimately, we're trying to be proactive and have you set up for success before we get to this point. But unfortunately, over the last year, I bet we've had a dozen or so where we've been having conversations around, we got some concern. I feel like we've got some inherent risk today and looking for some partnership or some expertise to really guide us in how we go about addressing it. And so unfortunately, in this one, we recognize the problem that I don't feel like I've got a good grasp on where I sit today in terms of my infrastructure and my security risk today. So ultimately, in the process of developing, doing all the discovery to get the technology assessment rolling, that organization fell victim to ransomware. And we see business email compromises, we see wire fraud, you name it. But ultimately, able to kind of put that to the side. Ultimately, still, that's going to be a good framework for us to work off of here as we move into the future. But isolate the incident, make meaningful recommendations about getting insurance and forensics involved, and then from there, making sure that something like that never happens again through the services and tools.
Thank you, Riley. Those are really helpful. And so, as I say, if you are considering managed services, and based on the poll, some people were, Adam, can you talk us through, if they're thinking about making the move or want to talk to a managed service provider, what guidance would you give them?
Yeah, thanks, Kim. And hey, cost is a thing. I manage our vendor relations, and the first question I'll ask is, how much is this going to cost, right? It just has to come up. But it's a consideration, and actually at face value, maybe the price of managed services could look expensive, but if you put your CFO hat on and you look at all the cost savings benefits, it's a reduction of security tools or a displacement of existing tools for tools Marco is going to provide or another service provider is going to provide. It's the W-2 time, the burden labor or the personnel time that you wouldn't need to hire if you aren't going to do managed services. The ROI is almost always in favor of going with managed services, but cost is an absolute consideration for sure. There's a big convenience factor for small and medium businesses to fully outsource your IT department. Hiring and retaining a good IT leader, an IT staff, it's really difficult, as Jonathan mentioned earlier. So to allow a company like Marco to provide all the services needed for a mature and a consistent IT service delivery, it allows your business leaders to focus on growing and driving your business forward. Cyber risk reduction, almost every business, even small businesses now, are required to protect their customers' data, respond appropriately in the case of a security event, and really to protect their own business from reputational damage or even business ending, major security events. And so make sure you're choosing the right partner that has a security first approach to managed services. They should be following industry standard frameworks in the way that they approach their managed services and security practice. Business outcomes, pick a partner that is proactive and strategic. Managed IT services is not just break fix anymore in nature. They need to support your business objectives and produce a positive business outcome. And then really pick the right partner. And I've got quotes around partner because managed IT done well is not a 3 to 6 month agreement or an arrangement, right? Be thinking in terms of whether the company that you choose will provide quality support, protect your business from cybersecurity risk, and be a great business partner for 5, 10 years or longer, right? This really should be a long-term engagement and partnership.
Thanks, Adam. Those were really some good things to think about as they're exploring this opportunity, or actually looking to maybe move from a different MSP. So we did have two great questions we already asked, but we do have time to answer some more. So as I reminded you today, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop those into the chat, and we'll basically take as many as we can. The first one, though, that we did get is, Adam, I think this is a good one for you. We've heard like service level agreements, service level targets, we'll just say targets. But what does that look like for managed IT services?
Yeah, well, I mentioned it earlier. Go ask for the service provider's product and service agreement or their service catalog. Really, the service levels today for managed services need to be documented within one of those documents. Typically, you're going to find the P1 through priority 1, 2, 3, and 4, or severity 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in the traditional break fix model, that makes a ton of sense, because if everything's down, it's going to be a severity 1, right? And if you have a proactive planful request that you're putting in, it could be a severity 4. So it's normally what you're going to see as a priority 1 through 4. I would say in today's times, it's not just your end users submitting tickets anymore and looking for a response time. More than probably half of what's going on is going to be behind the scenes with NOC tools and SOC tools and 24/7 monitoring coming from Marco or a service provider. And so make sure that the service levels that you see are not only for when your end users need help or when your IT staff needs help. Make sure it also encompasses all of those proactive or even reactive services that get initiated from Marco or from a SOC team.
Yep. Riley, I thought this one was a good one. We just got this one in. So how do managed IT services accommodate business growth? We have a lot of companies that are merging, coming together, or they have a rapid growth period. So how do we handle that?
Yeah, and that's an important question that it's probably one of the first questions, right? Because how that's answered depends on what solutions and recommendations we're ultimately going to make. Done correctly, managed IT services offers a path for an organization to have a predictable spend. So, hey, as I add 2 locations and 20 staff members, it's going to be X amount more. We've got an aligned project team that knows exactly what we need to do with that partner, have a consistent team too to actually implement and roll that out, so that we're not taking away valuable time from your internal resources or staff members, so it operates as a well-oiled machine. So ultimately, to summarize, it's predictable cost, and really it's scalable resources at the end of the day as well. So you're not having to scramble to find 1 or 2 other people to accommodate all the support that's going to come in. We've got those staff members here on staff already and able to absorb that.
Perfect. Shelly, I have one for you I thought was a good one. I was going to say, there are a lot of cybersecurity tools, and we see more and more coming every day, new ones popping up. But what security measures or tools do managed services typically provide when they implement with the implementation to protect client data?
Well, that's a good one. You know how I would answer that? I'm going to maybe highlight typically. Okay, so cybersecurity and getting the right tools deployed in your network can be something that we need to understand a little bit more about your industry, and then what type of this word called framework that you're following. Think of it as a path, okay? So, because this path can change. It could be going straight for a while, and all of a sudden, you know, something changes in our world, and all of a sudden it's got to take a hard right. So those tools generally include or typically include email security. So there is so much volume-based attacks going on that people inside the organizations are clicking on emails, giving away their credentials, and they don't even realize it. So protecting users from that is very important. So making sure we have a good handle on how your email is set up, you know, talking about archiving email, filtering email, discussing spear phishing, like how we put the right tools to protect key individuals and all your employees is a big component. Content filtering. So all throughout the day, we are consuming internet, looking for certain things, you know, putting into a internet search, trying to find answers. If you accidentally click on a bad website, does your organization tools actually stop them from clicking that? So that's a typical cyber tool that we would look to deploy. Security awareness training. So we can be, without knowing, an indirect threat or a threat that is inside your organization. We just didn't know about it. So educating your employees is really important and part of the framework. And then finally, MFA, well, I shouldn't say finally, got one more. Multi-factor authentication is critical. And then also identifying whether your organization has for endpoint detection and response solution. There's more, but what Marco would do and our approach would be to do an assessment. You've heard that a couple of times now, a couple answers. Really know what tools you have, make sure they're right-sized, not over-engineered, but then make sure that we know what framework you're